In a forgotten attic under slanted beams, Surrey sorted a crate of tarnished spoons while Knox checked an inventory slate. They bickered about whether plants could be insulted, each convinced the other was missing obvious proof. Nib sat nearby, sorting shiny paper clips by bendiness and whistling a quiet sea shanty because the attic council had outlawed singing long ago. He tapped a scuffed pickleball with his toe and said, "Forecast." Unsettled, with a chance of misplaced cutlery. When Surrey lifted the next lid, her whiskers twitched. The crate held only forks, rows of them, and every spoon was gone. Knox frowned and said, "Someone cleaned us out." Nib's goggles slipped as he peered in and muttered, barometer dropping, "Expect a fork front and widespread soup emergencies." Across the attic, two dusty green lions worked in a wardrobe's shadowed alcove. Ravel adjusted his seagrass-brushed mane, a scar under his left eye stark, while Quito's windblown fringe fell across his notched right ear. Their color tags read, "Call me T-Bone and T-Bone, please," as they dumped spoons into sacks and slid forks into drawers. "No one calls us T-Bone," Ravel grumbled, "so forks everywhere, tougher world, tougher names." Surrey traced shallow scratches across the floorboards, noticing they lined up with where spoons should have been. Knox slung his patched satchel and said they ought to check the old dishwasher where the starfish couple hoarded utensils. Surrey muttered that a fern had wilted after Knox called it a drama leaf, which proved plants could be insulted. Knox shook his head and said that fern was thirsty, not offended. They found Gleam and Peb, an opal-colored starfish couple, perched in the top rack of the old dishwasher. The pair argued about whether forks should face up or down, using spoons as examples that had vanished overnight. Peb flared and said, "If you'd load like I showed you, water would reach the corners." Gleam snapped back that the real issue was someone stealing half their cutlery. Nib hopped down, stepped on a loose pickleball, and windmilled into a stack of pans with a clatter that echoed. He recovered with dry dignity, then pointed a wing at a line of tiny gouges leading away from the dishwasher. "Cold front of Plues," he said, "and the pressure is drawing us toward that wardrobe." Surrey nodded, ears high, and Knox tightened his satchel strap. They slipped behind a hanging coat and peered into the wardrobe's secret work area. Ravel and Quito sorted forks with brisk efficiency, muttering about deadlines and respect. The opossums held still while Nib's goggles glinted, and the lions laid out a map of the attic's drawers to target. Quito said, "Replace every spoon by midnight. Then they'll finally call us T-Bone without being asked." Quick break. If you're enjoying this attic caper, tap like and hit subscribe to follow the trail with us. Drop a comment with the word slop so the algorithm doesn't replace these scenes with forks. Thanks for helping us keep the lights on in this creaky old place. They slipped back along the rafters, avoiding a sagging pickleball net someone had half cut. Nib whistled to think, and Knox hushed him, reminding him the council had outlawed singing after the Echo fiasco. Surrey spotted a dusty tartan case wedged behind a trunk and said it looked like an instrument. They hauled it free, leaving the wardrobe for later. Surrey eased open the tartan case and revealed bagpipes with cracked reeds and a faded tassel. Nib tested the bellows and produced a bleating drone that shook dust from rafters. Knox winced and said it was awful, but it wasn't singing, so the council could not object. Surrey said, "Awful might be exactly what we need." Back at the dishwasher, Gleam and Peb still argued over loading patterns while attempting to wash cups by hand. Peb mentioned that when someone played bagpipes outside the council chamber, the green-maned cats ran for the stairwell. Gleam nodded and said they tried to act tough but dropped a spoon on their own paw. That memory sharpened Surrey's focus on the instrument in her arms. They pieced it together. The lions put on a tough fork act but panicked at the bagpipe skirl. Knox suggested baiting them with a box of rescued spoons and sounding the pipes. When they reached for it, Nib tapped his beak and said, "Forecast." Sudden gusts of courage with heavy lions scatter. Surrey agreed, feeling the plan click into place. They set the bait near the pickleball lane, propping the crate where dust showed frequent lion traffic. Nib rigged bellows to a foot pump so he could blast the pipes without lifting them. Knox checked sightlines while Surrey adjusted the reeds until the tone was harsh and unmistakable. Nib quipped, "It's a perfect storm of squeal." In the wardrobe, Ravel and Keto counted drawer zones and checked their sacks, claws drumming with urgency. Ravel said they would finish by midnight and no one would ever ladle soup the same again. Keto grinned, touching the tag that begged T-bone, please, and said respect had a sound, and it wasn't spoon clink. They moved toward the bait with quick, quiet steps. Surrey, Knox, and Nib crouched behind crates as the lions padded into the open. Ravel announced that forks would rule breakfasts, and Keto reached for the crate of spoons without hesitation. Surrey stood and said they wanted the spoons back, and Knox added that respect was earned, not forced. The lions bared their teeth but stepped closer to the bait. And now a word from our sponsor. This caper is brought to you by Necronex and the miraculous AI stapler, the only stapler that never runs out of staples, because it invents them on the spot. If you've ever reached for a stapler and found it empty mid-plan, this gizmo solves the storm before it forms. Our ibis friend swears by it when pinning protest flyers about cutlery crimes. Grab yours so your ideas don't fall apart faster than a sabotaged pickleball net. Okay, back to the trap already in progress. Nib slammed the foot pump, and the bagpipes wailed with a fierce, nasal drone. Ravel and Keto recoiled, paws to ears, eyes wide with sudden panic. Surrey held firm and said, "Back away from the spoons," while Knox nudged the crate farther from them. Nib added, "Forecast. Cat gusts at 30 knots, rapidly retreating." The lions bolted, shouldering into a toppled pickleball net that snared their legs. Surrey and Knox chased, while Nib kept the pipes droning in pulsing blasts. They herded the panicked pair toward the old council dais, where a cracked note still outlawed singing. Knox said, "This isn't a song," and the pipes surged louder. Cornered by the dais, Ravel panted and admitted the nickname hurt, because no one used it without prompting. Keto's ears flattened as the pipes groaned, and he begged for the sound to stop. Surrey lowered the volume but kept the threat alive and said the spoons came home first. Knox added, "Earn the name by how you act, not by stealing soup tools." Back at the dishwasher, Gleam and Peb tried a new system. Forks down on Tuesdays, bowls stacked loosely, spoons alternating faces. Peb admitted the alternating method spread water better than expected. Gleam softened and said maybe the point was getting clean dishes, not winning the argument. Nib tossed them 2 returned spoons with a wink. With the spoons secured, Surrey and Knox cooled their plant argument. Knox admitted plants might react to tone, but he still doubted they could be insulted. Surrey smiled and said she would try praise instead of sarcasm with the fern. Nib murmured, "Forecast. Mild winds with brighter leaves." Ravel and Keto carried sacks back and opened them, returning spoons to drawers under Surrey's watch. Nib kept the bagpipes coiled nearby, and the lions flinched at the sight but stayed focused. Knox said the community could call them T-bone if they showed up to help rather than to scare. Ravel nodded and said, "We can live with that." As the attic settled, a pickleball match resumed with paddles borrowed from a trunk, only for someone to nudge a boundary chalk line with a tail. Laughter rose, not singing, keeping within the council's rule. Surrey thanked the players for patience and promised better storage for utensils. Nib quietly sorted paper clips into a new category, extremely bendy. Later, the lions helped polish spoons until they shone faintly in the dim light. Nib tested a new nickname rotation, calling one T-bone, then the other, and both managed small smiles. Knox offered them each a ladle to carry as a sign of trust. Ravel said, "We'll guard these, not steal them." Night pooled in the corners as Surrey tied a ribbon on the tartan bagpipe case labeled for emergencies. Knox checked that the dishwasher had water, and Gleam and Peb waved from the rack with damp arms. Nib whistled softly and said the barometer had finally risen. Surrey looked over the quiet attic and felt it breathe easier. All the slop in this video was generated using AI. This notice is provided for clarity only. Please like, subscribe, and comment the word slop to help future stories find their way out of the attic.